Perfect.
Yes, so thank you all for being here. My name is Maury Pongratz. I served 6 terms on the county council in the 80s and 90s, and I'm really happy to be here and really pleased to see that we have a full slate of candidates. We had a forum in White Rock that I moderated, and what we're going to do is they will initially give a little description of their background and their interests. I'll give them 4 minutes for that. I'll start a timer. I'll stand up. After 3.5 minutes, they'll have 30 more seconds. And when my timer goes off, that's it. Then there will be questions. I'm going to take the prerogative of asking the first question. I gave them a quiz in White Rock. And I don't think they would have showed up again if I had done it again. So I just have a question to get it started, and then we'll take questions from the floor. If you have a question addressed to a given candidate, we're going to ask all the other candidates if they want to say something in response to that question. And we had a little card drawing here to see who got the high cards, to see who goes first. And Pete Sheehy has the highest card. So Pete, the floor is yours. Now, do you want me to bring the mic there, or do you want to come up here and talk?
I'll come there.
You may want to hold on to it.
Bring it over.
Okay. You can be right here.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Pete Sheehy. I first came here in 1986 after serving in the Air Force and going back to school to earn a PhD at UCLA. Since then, I've had a busy career at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where I worked on controlled fusion and weapons physics, including emergency response work. The people I've worked with will tell you I'm a hard worker and a team player. This April, I was happy to accept the lab's early separation program and have more time to devote to my family and community. I am continuing work as a guest scientist. I've long been active in bipartisan political groups such as the Los Alamos Committee on Arms Control and International Security, which was led by my late friend Dave Thompson. I've been active in politics and on community issues, such as serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission since 2008. In all these activities, I've been a consensus builder. People have many ideas and opinions in this town, but we can work together successfully if we treat each other with trust and respect. I think I've shown the judgment, patience, stamina, and good humor needed to make a good county councilor for this town. When I first came to Los Alamos in 1986, I immediately felt this was a place I'd like to live. The work was good, the country was beautiful, and the people were smart and friendly. That's all still true. Many of us feel like we've been able to live the American dream here. But in 2012, we've got some work to do to keep that dream alive in this country and right here in Los Alamos. That's why I'm running for county council. It's gotten harder for small businesses to make it in this town, and that hurts all of us who need those businesses here. Our schools are still good, but it's hard to keep good teachers when they can't find decent, affordable housing. The council takes a lot of public comment and gets the participation of lots of volunteers on county boards and commissions. Yet many people still tell me they don't feel well informed about the council's spending decisions and just what their priorities are. And people question whether we're getting good value for those tax dollars spent. I think I can help solve those problems by focusing on some very fundamental things: communication, prioritization, fiscal responsibility, and sustainability. Communication means listening to people and telling people honestly and clearly what our issues and choices are. That's how we will develop consistent priorities for future spending. If we manage, my priorities are public safety, infrastructure, education, and economic development. If we manage these things well, then we will be able to afford to keep improving the amenities we have that make for a nicer town. Fiscal responsibility means spending our money wisely. Sustainability is not just about using our resources well, but using all of our, using natural resources, but all our resources, using them wisely. This nation and this county may not be as prosperous as we once thought we were, but we're not broke. We can't afford all the important things for our community as long as we prioritize. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And I believe that Kristen is the next one with the 10 of clubs. Big high card there.
Hi. Is that too loud? Is that better? I'm Kristen Henderson, and I am running for one of the seats on the county council. So a little bit about me. We've lived here 9 years. I am a lawyer. I have a law degree from UCLA, and I've practiced law. And here I actually work at RE/MAX, so I'm a business person here. And not everyone knows how that model works, but you are your own person. You work under their marketing banner, but you have to have your own business to be running that. So I'm well aware of a lot of the issues with running your own business here. And I am also a local mom and very much a volunteer. My kids are in elementary school, and I have a Girl Scout troop I'm the leader of, and I've taught a CCD at our church, and I volunteer in the classroom, and I do a lot of volunteer work around here as well. I think I'm going to go over here so I can look at my notes better. So the reason I decided to run for county council is living here 9 years, I've been watching the council. I was really interested in the Trinity site originally, and I really thought about our council, and to me there's a big disconnect between a lot of people in town and our local government. And I've been trying to kind of figure out why. I think there's, to be honest, a number of reasons why, but the conclusion I came to is one of the voices that's really not heard very often is those who'd like to really see a little bit of progress, and also the families in town. And to me, the reason for that is this is a kind of government where you have to show up to get heard. And the people who cannot show up are the people who, you know, for the most part still have kids at home, and on the evening that there's county council, they have basketball practice and swim team and homework and this and that and the other. And we might say, well, that's just too bad. That's a part of their life that they don't get to really participate. But the truth is, this town is a lot different now than it might have been when some of you came. We have far less shopping. We have far less amenities. We have a lot of the things that we might need to have a lively town, we don't have anymore. And I think there's always been a myth, well, you know, Los Alamos is kind of at the end of the road. It's not always a great place to move initially, but you're going to love it when you've been here for a while. And that's true. The difference with that is right now we are losing people in our 20s, 30s, and 40s at a higher rate than the rest of the state. And that has real consequences to the quality of work at the lab. And probably most of you have really a vested interest in the heritage of the lab and the incredible work that was done there in wanting that to move forward. We don't want to have the town be a liability for the lab in the future. We want the town to be an asset, because this is an amazing place to live. Our schools are great. The location is fantastic. But we want the town to be an asset in the lab's recruitment abilities. And frankly, that's what can allow us to have a broader economic base. If people are pretty thrilled to move here because of the lab, they're going to be pretty thrilled to move here because this is where they can have their high-tech business or whatever kind of business they want to run. Excuse me, they're going to be happy to be doing that here as well. So that was one of the main reasons that I chose to run. I think we should work with the system that we have, and the system we have is you really need to be participating, and I've decided that I'm going to participate, or at least try. So I think that is most of what I wanted to say, other than I've had a few people ask me, well, what specific thing do you want for the town? What's the one thing that you really want for the town? And to be honest with you, I don't think it's about wanting one thing. I think that's maybe been how the government's always worked in the past. And to me, it's more about having a vision that the town can work for everybody. There's a lot of us here. We run the complete gamut in age. We have 2-year-olds and 102-year-olds. We need to have a town that works for everybody. So thank you.
Kristen. So we go all the way down from the 10 of clubs to the 5 of hearts. Vincent.
5 of, well.
5 of clubs. I can't read my own writing.
I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone here for coming to attend the forum. I've been in Los Alamos for about 9 years now, and I was humbled and honored 4 years ago to be elected to the county council as someone relatively new to the community and new to politics. We've dealt with a lot of issues on the council during the 4 years that I've been there. And I feel the most important role for a public official is to look carefully and critically at spending. There are things that local government has to do, and really only local government can do. And I support doing those things. But I want to make sure that we make every dollar count, and we're not spending more money than what we need to do in our community. And I feel that looking back on my time on the council, that I've been very supportive of the issues that matter to our seniors. Based on my experience with my own family, I know how much of a difference it makes to come and to take seniors and have a day out program and take them out of the home. And we have such a program here in Los Alamos, and that's why when a request was made for increased funding for that program, I strongly supported it. I also appreciate what it's like to be on a fixed income. And in situations where your income is fixed, the county has to do its part to make sure that it's not too much of a burden on people who pay property taxes. And that's why I worked with other councilors during my first term, and we were able to reduce the county's property tax rate to give relief to those folks who are on fixed incomes. And finally, we need to have a meal service for our seniors. And here we have a wonderful service here at the Betty Ehart Center. But I joined other councilors, and we voted to create a new renovated senior center in White Rock. And renovating our existing center, part of that renovation will be a commercial kitchen, so that those seniors who are living in White Rock can take advantage of having prepared meals. And I think that makes a big difference. Looking forward with the council, I feel, my opinion, that spending on large government buildings has been a bit of an overindulgence on the part of local government. And I don't feel that this type of spending on large government facilities is going to address the most important need for our community, which is attracting more young families to live here. And to address that need, my priorities include supporting technology companies that are trying to create new high technology jobs here in Los Alamos, so we can have a diversification and have more work that is being done outside of the laboratory. And that's why on the council I voted with other councilors to give a grant to the New Mexico Consortium so they could bring 60 employees here to Los Alamos and do research in biofuels and bring with them more research dollars into our community. This is the sort of thing that I would prioritize. We have great potential in our research park and in the Entrada Business Park, and I'd like to see those areas expand. And the county government has an important role to play in that. I feel also that we need to have new housing and retail options in our community. And for me, a high priority would be the development of the A19 parcel, 60-acre parcel in White Rock. And the county has a role to play in its development by creating a plan for dividing up the parcel and also putting in infrastructure so that people can go in and develop the property. And finally, I'm a very strong supporter of our public schools. And that's why I introduced an ordinance so that our public schools would get 100% of the lease revenue. And I will commit to you now that I'm opposed to having roundabouts on Trinity Drive. I would like to see us invest in our sidewalks and our parks and our trails and the things that county government needs to do. But I want to make sure that we're not an obstacle to our seniors and to all of our citizens. And finally, I would ask for your vote on November 6th so that I can serve another term as your county councilor and put principles ahead of politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent. Okay, Steve Gearens is next.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Gerrans, and I'm running for County Council. I've lived in White Rock since 1979. Before I came to Los Alamos, I grew up on a farm in Kansas. We farmed wheat, and we also had a dairy. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I've basically worked my way up through the ranks at the laboratory, and I've had various different assignments, a lot of them technical, but I'm also right now a senior manager at the laboratory. I'm an associate director for engineering sciences. I'm not a politician. I'm a servant. When I came here, volunteers ran this. Volunteers did things here. Volunteers built the ski hill. The one passionate thing that I did was build the overlooked softball fields. But then I also helped cut precious and found out that that was way too much work, so I kept working on baseball fields. I've been involved by virtue of doing the volunteer work. I've seen you cannot help but cross paths with county activities. And so I learned early that if you wanted to contribute or if you wanted to make a difference, you had to get involved, like they've said before. So early on, being Overlook, what I got involved with county government was Parks and Rec. So that's where I started engaged. So in the 80s, I was in the Parks and Rec. Did some of the early master planning for the various parks that we have and tried to expand those amenities. Then as life goes on, things mature, and next in the 90s I found myself on the P&Z. I'm also married to somebody who's very engaged in county government, and my wife is Sharon Stover. So we had to take turns, okay? I was on the P&Z until Sharon was elected. Then I had to get off, couldn't do nothing for 4 years. Then she got off. Then I got to run for school board in the 2000s. So then I did 4 years on school board, then she got elected again, so I got off of that, okay? So now it's my turn now to run for council. I've watched and worked with a lot of our former councilors over the years, and I think this is the place where you can really make a contribution. And I think I have the diverse set of experiences to do that. One of the things we talked about, or that was brought up, by Vincent, is the things to have the New Mexico Consortium, these projects of working with the lab. I was a division leader of tech transfer over at the laboratory, and so I understand how we have to work with the consortium and with the laboratory and try to seed those companies here. So I've been on both sides. I can see that. I understand that. I know how to help nurture that on the other side. The other thing is, being a manager over at the laboratory, I think I've hired 70 people in my career. And I knew as soon as my young gentlemen got married, and what was even more important, as soon as they had children, we had them. Okay, so I'm a proponent of the schools. That's how we keep the young families here and work those issues. So I think I can bring a lot of different perspective to this council. And with that, I thank you and ask for your vote.
Thank you very much, Steve, and I'm sorry about the phone call I got. Let's see, I think with the 2 of spades, Mark is slightly higher than Michael's 2 of hearts, I think, knowing my bridge rules anyway. So, Mark, it's all yours.
Can I adjust this? Sure. I've been a long-time musician, singer, so I have some knowledge of these things. There you go. My name is Mark Clay. I have lived in Los Alamos for a very long time, but I promised today that before I started, I would give thanks, because I guess I'm the winner of the Brightest Shirt Award today. So you can thank my wife, Bonnie. My wife, Bonnie, has been behind me every step of the way, and I want to make sure I said thank you to her wherever she is right now before I get started. I have a long tradition, heritage in Los Alamos in northern New Mexico. I was born in Santa Fe in 1959.
My father supplanted from the Midwest and coming out here. At the urging of my aunt and uncle, John and Betty Lou Stein, maybe some of you remember them, longtime residents here. Anyway, that's how we got out here. My father was a ranger at Bandelier. My wife's family, also longtime residents of Los Alamos, Tom and Kathy Hall. Some of you probably remember them. At CB Fox, Tom, my wife's grandfather, opened the first shoe store in town. Remember Hall Shoes way back in the day. So anyway, I'm pretty connected on both sides. I've been living in New Mexico most of my life, except for the 6 years I was in the Navy in the 70s. So after a honorable discharge from the Navy, came here in '83 working at LAMF. So, and I've been a technician, a specialist staff member, a technical staff member, an office leader, an office director. I've been all over the place. I worked at virtually every technical area. I know a lot about laboratory. I've been a manager, managing multi-million-dollar budgets. I recognize some of the people here who've trained me in the past, and I'm appreciative of that rich heritage. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I'll do the same thing as Kristen, take a look at my notes. Why am I running for council? How did I get where I am? Really what got me on the journey of council was my experience in a program called Leadership Los Alamos. Some of you have heard of that program. Many of the people in the community have been through that program. In fact, some of your counselors, past and present, are Leadership Los Alamos graduates. I was a graduate way back. Steve went through the program. Sharon started the program. There's Sharon back there, back in 2004, right? Yeah. I think that's the time. Anyway, once I graduated, I was on the board, so I was working with training leaders in the community to take these positions, on all the boards, various local things for even church communities, schools, whatever, get involved in the community. And that whole time, the plan for me was do the same thing. Okay, so now I've been in the community in a lot of different ways. I've really been focusing a lot on youth. I've been a football coach, basketball coach, scouting. I've done a lot through that program. Leadership Los Alamos, a lot of training in the issues in leadership here. Also a graduate of Leadership New Mexico, so I know about the regional issues. So I wanted to give you a flavor for what my qualifications for being here are. And I am connected to much of the leadership in the community because of all those connections. The four things that I really am focusing on for my time on council, the first would be, these are not in any particular order, these are four important things to me. One is going to be the quality of life for our citizens. There's a lot of attention paid to getting new people here, and that's important, but the quality of life of the people that are already here is very important, ranging all ages, from baby to 102, as we just heard. So that's a big focus for me. Also, economic vitality, we'll talk more about that in a while, about having a vibrant, vital retail. I'm a proponent of the school program as we assist the schools because they're our community of tomorrow, and how do we help them as the county obligated to help that. And I wanted to also let you know that everything that I do is grounded in a set of core values that I very strongly believe in. Leadership, commitment, servant leadership, and anyway, I look forward to your vote on November 6th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Now if I can figure out how to turn this thing off, we'll get Michael started. So Michael, go ahead.
Hello everybody, good afternoon, and thank you very much for coming here today and giving us the opportunity to speak with you. Once again, my name is Michael Redondo. Like Mr. Clay, I moved here in 1983. I was only 3 years old, so I didn't really have much of a choice in the matter, though. But growing up here, I have learned to appreciate how wonderful this town is. This is an amazing place to grow up. I left to get my bachelor's degrees. I spent time in the Peace Corps in Panama, and I also left to get my master's degree, which I finished a little over a year ago in community and regional planning. I came back to town and I started a small consulting firm doing planning consulting, specifically biodiversity planning. I have found it difficult to make a living not working at the lab and living in this town. It's not easy. So in order to supplement my meager income from the consulting firm, I also have been working as an extra in the movie industry here in New Mexico. I work as a high school soccer referee, and I've been making handmade pottery and selling pottery. So I do what I can to make a living, but it has made me very aware of the fact that it is difficult for young people like myself to make a living in this town if you aren't working at the lab. And I know many people my age leave town. And one of the main reasons that I am looking to serve on the council is because I think, given my planning background, I can do a lot to help make this a town where people like myself not only can stay here and succeed, but also want to stay here. And want to make this their home, because it is truly an amazing place. And I said this in White Rock 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I'm obviously fairly young. I'm not a senior citizen, but I aspire to become one day. And I think I can help represent seniors as well as younger people like myself. Many of our interests are, they coincide, particularly affordable housing. That's something that for many seniors is very important, but it's also very important to attract younger people and make it easier for them to stay here. Also, the issue of economic vitality, that's an amazingly important thing to keep young people here. And given my background in planning, I think one of the things that I think I can help on the council is looking at our development code, our zoning code. That's something that it's the same code we've had since the 1968, I believe. And I believe that we need to update it for the conditions that exist here now. There are things that we can do to help make it easier for small businesses to keep those retail interests here in town. And I think I'm particularly well placed to help encourage the county to look at new ways to deal with this. And I'm not saying that I want to rewrite the zoning codes. I'm saying I want the community as a whole to look at our zoning codes and look at what we as a community need and what we want to see this community as, so that we can make it happen. I once again thank you for the time to come here and speak, and I look forward to speaking further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And I'm going to take the moderator's privilege to ask the first question. There are going to be a couple of bond elections coming up here in Los Alamos in January. The school's going for a continuation of the present mill levy for them, but UNMLA is looking for a 2 mil increase for their operational needs. And what I'm going to do now is, since Pete went first, we're going to go to Kristen first. Could you see perhaps that the county might be willing to lower their property tax should that mill levy pass? I'll just give it to you.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I'm in favor of the school bond being continued. I don't know how much you guys have been out to the current schools, but considering we want to have one of the more excellent school systems, the state of our schools is, maybe you all are well aware of this, but they're borderline shameful that we send our children to those schools. And I'm so impressed with the beautiful new high school, and I'm looking forward to having other buildings also be updated. And in terms of actually lowering our real estate taxes, I know that this is a sensitive issue, and I think that especially for people on a fixed income, it's an especially sensitive issue. Oddly enough, as a community with our income level, we actually have the lowest tax rate in the nation for our income level. And in fact, we have the lowest tax rate on our real estate for our income level by half. So maybe if that's going to be done, it could be done in such a way that it only applies to, there's ways perhaps to do this. I'm not even sure on all the law, but just on the people who, who it would affect in the worst way, people who are on a fixed income, or, maybe there's ways to do that. I personally am not in favor of a general across the board version of that. I think if people don't want to vote for instance, the UNMLA, then that's their choice not to vote for that. I'm not advocating that people don't vote for that. I'm just saying that I'm currently right now, I don't look at our town and say, hey, we have all the public services we could ever need. I'm not saying we should be raising it, but when we have the lowest by half, I don't think it's a huge need to be addressing it, other than for perhaps certain people who really would be affected by that are on the fixed income. One of the interesting things, I actually work at RE/MAX, and as I already mentioned, I guess, but I'll have people who've lived here a long time move away, and I'll chat with them later, how's it going in Kansas or Oklahoma, honestly, even places like that, Colorado, how is it? They're like, you would not believe the property taxes. I think we get very used to how great it is that we have very low property taxes, but it's probably important to realize, relatively speaking, they are. Thank you.
Would you give it to Vincent? He's next.
Yeah.
I'm a strong supporter of both our public schools and UNMLA, and I will vote in November for both of these measures. And in the past, I've supported on the council's budget initiatives to help both UNMLA and our public schools. I think there's a clear need for both organizations to have the revenue. And as I've already said, I supported in the past, and I voted for a property tax reduction to give relief to our citizens who are on fixed income. And I support trying to look and assess whether we can do that again in the future. However, we have to keep in mind that a lot of what the county can do is going to be dependent on what happens at the laboratory and the economic activities and the effect on their budget, because most of our county budget, the income, comes from GRT tax from the laboratory. And if they take a cut, I can't imagine us being able to offer a property tax reduction. But I certainly support trying to do it if it's feasible to do it.
Would you give it to Steve?
I'm not in favor of reducing the county taxes on property to counter the increase with UNMLA, and the reason for that is I believe our county tax on our property is already about as minimum as it can be without reducing it to zero. I think it's 1.5 mils or 2. A few years ago it was cut in half and reduced, so that's already happened. The reason the other taxes are up now is because I think of the referendum for the Pyrito Cliffs, and that was an election, so the population voted in favor of taxing themselves for that referendum or that bond project. As far as the 2 school bonds are concerned, I'm one of the architects of the 20-year renewal plan for the schools, and Maury was on that board also, and that's the plan we put forward 4 years ago when we first sold the LA Public Schools bond. That bond, that election, was to tax ourselves to the maximum allowed by the Constitution. We needed that amount of money to put that investment into our schools, and because of that, because we bonded ourselves to the maximum and our schools were old, we got the maximum match from the state public school finance authority, public school finance authority. The high school, in this last 4 years, our money has been matched on our high school project and our middle school project 33%. So we put in 67 cents and the state's been giving us 33%. So that's been quite a major a major help. We got a lot more work done at the high school site than we even planned on in the original plan to replace. Right now, the middle school is under construction. With the new bond election, what we're selling is redo Aspen School. Okay, that's another one where we're, because of its age, we'll get a 33% match again. And that's a $11 million out of the 20 for this bond, and then the state's going to kick in $6 if it doesn't get stolen from something else in the state. But anyway, there.
Thank you, Steve. I'll give it to Mark. I think it reaches. And then Michael, and then Pete.
In my time in Los Alamos, I have been the receiver of some of the benefits of our school system. I have an associate's degree from UNMLA. I went up to the old school, or to the school up there. I've had a lot of kids in the school program. Through my coaching and my youth work, my students and myself and my athletes they've been the recipient of the benefits of the school. So anything we can do to make that better, from my experience, we need to do. And so I know this recent bond really helped the high school. It's currently helping the middle school, and I've been through those facilities and through those things, and it really needed it. So anything we can do, it's one of my strong pieces, is to try to support that. I'm also strongly in support of UNMLA. I've had children go through it also, my own kids, and it's a great resource for the community that we need to make sure that we're helping move forward. Now, as far as the tax piece is concerned, I'm also not in favor of swapping one tax for another. I mean, I'm always for trying to reduce tax if possible. You have to be careful of something called unintended consequences. Most of you have heard of that term. If you do this, what does that cause? So that's something that's key to my mind all the time. I know through my work at the laboratory, that's something we're not as good at the lab always as we'd like to be, about thinking what's going to happen if we do that. So it's something in my mind through a creative process, always trying to anticipate what's coming next, especially considering, as we've heard earlier, we better be a partner with Lanel to find out what's going on. So that's sort of the tax piece that I'll talk. I'm not in favor of swapping one for another. I would like to reduce if possible. We are pretty low already. It may be tough, again, for unintended consequences, but that's kind of where I stand. Of course, you're talking about the schools.
Give it to Michael, please. And then to Pete.
Aspen Elementary School is my alma mater. I went to school there, and when I went to elementary school there, it was crumbling. I can only imagine what it looks like now. I am strongly in favor of the school bond issues. I also spent a year at UNMLA. It's a real treasure and an amazing part of this community. And it would be a shame to lose that if we don't support it. When it comes to the property taxes, we do have very low property taxes in this town. And I have to admit, I personally do not own real estate in Los Alamos, so I do not pay property taxes. But I hope one day to be able to afford property here. I would love to buy property, and I don't want the property taxes to be outrageously high when I do so. That being said, I don't think that we need to lower them. For young people and for people on fixed incomes, I think there are other alternatives to help them if that burden is too high. There are many things we can do to make sure that people aren't forced out of their homes because they can't afford the property taxes anymore. I have lived in communities where this has been a serious issue, and there are creative ways to help keep that from happening that don't involve lowering the property taxes, because under state law, you can't, for example, fund operating expenses of schools with gross receipts tax, whereas those monies come in large part from property taxes. So we need to make sure that we don't hinder our ability to support the schools. Thank you.
I support the school's bond proposal. They will make the case to you. They have already started. That would not raise property taxes. My wife and I have a 15-year-old living with us and going to LA high school, so I have a hand in that. But we all do. Education gave virtually all of us the careers we have. And good education, good schools mean good property values. So we all benefit in direct and indirect ways. UNMLA provides important opportunities for all the way from high school students to small business people on up to senior citizens. I expect many of you have taken courses from them. I also support their proposal. Their proposal would add to our property taxes. This is a decision for the community to make whether to agree to give this extra funding to UNMLA, which I think is an asset to community. I'm going to vote for it. I respect the decision of the community whether to support that or not, which would result in an increase to property taxes. That said, property taxes are relatively low here. That's a good thing, and we should keep them that way. If the community indeed decides to approve this slight increase in property taxes for UNMLA, and I am on the county council, I think we should look at an offsetting decrease in county property taxes. And for starters, the property taxes that we collect as a county now are a small part of the budget. It's on the order of $5 million, which Maury was quick to make sure we all knew, compared to more like $50 million from gross receipts tax. So it's a small part of the budget. Every bit helps, and we would have to find offsetting savings to accommodate a drop in the county property tax levy. I'm willing to look at that and consider that. If the voters simply vote to approve the schools bond, which will keep property taxes level, but do not approve UNMLA, I think there's no need to try to lower it further. As I've said, we've all said, anybody who's lived outside of here and paid property taxes know we have a good thing here, but we also have a lot of expenses to pay, and we can argue over which ones are most important and least important, but county revenues are needed for a lot of things. Thank you.
Okay, now I'll take questions from the audience. Thank you. Yeah, if you speak into it, because
okay.
Greg is
Yeah,
taping it, I believe.
So on the ballot this fall also are going to be some charter amendments which will affect the local government and how council deals with citizens. And frankly, I'm still a little confused. I have to read all those amendments and make up my own mind. But I'm just kind of wondering. Maybe some of you have taken some public positions on these charter amendments. I mean, my feeling in general is I believe in representative government. And I don't want to see paralysis of government. And so some. You know, if groups come up with a small number of signatures to try to block various actions of government. So I have to read these amendments to see how they're all worded. It is a little confusing now, but just what is your position on these charter amendments and how you perceive the council to act if some of these are passed or not passed?
Thank you very much. Good question. We'll start with Vince. We go down through the cards.
Yes, thank you.
Following the cards.
Following the cards.
First, I'd like to say that I appreciate very much the in-depth work that the Charter Review Committee did. And I respect the experience of the members of that committee. It was a difficult task to look at our charter and try to find ways to improve it. But as you know, on the council, these ordinances came before the council to amend the charter, and I did not support them at the time. And at the ballot box in November, I'm going to vote against them. And my reason for that is not because I don't think that they're thoughtful or a lot of effort went into trying to produce these, but I'm concerned because I think it's going to make it harder for people to have citizen petitions. Some of the provisions are going to increase the number of signatures required in some circumstances, reduce the amount of time to collect the signatures, and also restrict the subject matter for citizen petitions. And this to me is a concern. I think our government works best when the citizens' fundamental right to petition their local government is not impinged upon. I'm comfortable with our charter the way it is in terms of initiative, referendum, and charter amendment. And so I would be comfortable keeping it as it is. And that is my position.
Steve, next.
So I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of Vincent. This committee that worked on this, we haven't looked at the charter or worked on it this heavy since '68. So this is a serious look at how to make it consistent with today's law. And one area where it's not consistent with New Mexico state law right now is in what you can petition against, and that's why some of these petitions have been hung up or declared illegal, because you cannot petition against administrative activities, and that's what some of these petitions did. So what these amendments are doing, or what you're voting on, is basically bringing our wording up consistent with New Mexico state law, and then also making it almost clear what people can petition against. As far as the time is concerned, we're going from 120 days to 90. 90, that's what, still 3 months? The number of signatures is going up, and it's still less than Santa Fe, but it's going up above, it's like the 15% number versus the 10. That goes right to your point about, so that you don't have petitions just for the sake of having a petition and the petition of the month. And then the legality, fixing the language so that it's consistent with New Mexico law on what you can petition against. You can petition against policies, not against administrative, how you're basically taking care of the situation or enacting the situation. So I'm going to vote for all of them.
Mark is next.
Just to jump on what Steve said, because he and I would have said almost virtually the same thing, but just for clarity, so you are going to be voting for 4 different things. Okay, so initiatives are things before they sort of get started. Referendum is to try to repeal things that already got passed. Recall, is the other piece about, when do we try to remove people from office, and then how do you change the charter after that? Those are the 4 things you're looking at. What's important to note is it is trying to lay down what's specifically allowed legally, because it was a little vague in the previous charter, which led to people, unknowingly wasting their time on things that turned out to be illegal things to have on referendum or on initiatives. So it's designed to make that consistent with law, make it explicit so people will know. The other thing is, as Steve alluded to a bit, it's to make it consistent with our neighbors and the neighboring communities. What typically do they do in a form of representative government? Your question, it shouldn't be simple, easy to overturn things that you have chosen representatives to do for you. So it's not impossible, but it's not really easy. So it takes some effort to do it. So that's why the things have been adjusted to be more consistent with our neighbors. Consistent with law, and actually to streamline a lot of the language. There was a lot of repetition for those of you who've spent time wading through the charter. It's pretty complex because there's a lot of citations. It looks like it says the same thing over and over again, so it's really trying to get that consolidated, which is sort of what the whole point is. So I'll be for them because we do need to be consistent, and we do need a representative government. There's a reason you elect people like us to do those things for you, and we take your input through all various settings like this, and you want us to make those decisions. So I'll be for all those 4 things.
Thank you, Mark. Michael, and then Pete.
I actually took the time to read the ordinances in their entirety just about a week ago.
In the fine print or in the...
Yeah, it's quite a long set of documents. I take a strange, perverse enjoyment in reading those sorts of things. But I understand the rationale and the reasoning for them. And I think that what we're trying to do is going to help the county. Personally, and I don't wish to denigrate the hard work that the people who put this together did, I would have worded a few of the sections slightly differently. And there are a few points where it could have been made even more clear. But I do think that these are an improvement over the current language in the charter. The small complaints I have notwithstanding, I most likely will vote for all 4 of them. I think that the most important thing is that under the current charter, if someone doesn't like an ordinance that the council passes, they can put in a petition, and whatever ordinance they passed doesn't go into effect for 180 days until the end of that petitioning process. So any person in the county can, just one person, you don't even have to get the signatures, just starting the petition process will delay an ordinance for 6 months. And so I think that the changes really are positive.
Thank you, Michael. Give it to Pete and then Kristen.
Don't get choked by the cord.
I'm asking to become your representative, one of 7 county councilors for the next 4 years. I will study the issues. I will make decisions that I think are in the best interest of all of Los Alamos. That said, I have no problem if the citizens want a check on our decisions for certain important matters. Big, new capital improvement projects, not every single one, not at $1 million, but $10 million, $20 million. That is the origin of all these petitions over the last 4 or 5 years, a concern that the council was going ahead with things and citizens wanted to have a check. All our levels of government have, if you have a mayor who can veto a council's actions, if you have a Supreme Court who can check council or check legislative actions, we have a system of checks and balances. Here, those provisions in our charter which allow citizens to petition to overturn actions of the council are that check. I did not favor weakening those positions. Certainly streamlining the language is good, but the council took the work, the excellent work of the Charter Review Committee, which incorporated suggestions not just to streamline, but suggestions going in both directions to make it harder for petitions to be approved, and also suggestions from other citizens that would make it possible for the council to offer a citizen vote on certain large capital items. And the council stripped out all of those recommendations of the Charter Review Committee and left only those which make it more difficult. That's the kind of action which has generated the kind of citizen concern that results in 2,000 signatures getting on petitions. It's not easy to get a petition signed under the present circumstances. So I have no problem with what the citizens want to do. If they're in favor of tightening the requirements as recommended in these 4 provisions, so be it. If they want to retain that right, and even if they want, as the original petition was, to have direct votes on new capital improvement items over a large amount, like $10 million, we could have an orderly government with that. We're not asking for votes every month. It's big items which the citizens have a right to say. Big capital improvement items in most cities have to be voted on because the cities don't have this huge gross receipts tax stream big capital improvement projects generally require a bond issue. Well, the fact of the matter is, we've kind of spent all our excess funds, and any major capital improvement like a community broadband system is going to require a bond election. So in a way, this whole issue is moot. Future big capital improvements, you are going to get to vote. But in the meanwhile, I don't approve of these particular amendments, but I'm quite happy to let the citizens decide. And so that's my...
Okay, Kristen is ready to go, I know.
I am ready to go. I've thought about this issue a lot, frankly, and I even did, despite the fact I'm already a lawyer and have studied it academically, I spent some time looking into it, thinking about what I want but best for my community. I even consulted with a friend of mine who, as it turned out, I didn't know is an expert in this field. I knew he was a government professor at my college, but it turns out he wrote a definitive book on this. But anyway, the point that I want to make is with this, the charter, I'm in favor of these charter amendments. They do two things. One is administrative. This charter that we have from 1968, we took it whole cloth from some other town. We never have changed it. The initiative and referendum items are spread out throughout it. So the administrative part is just to take it out of all those parts, put it in one part. That's easy enough. The substantive parts, and actually there's another part that's truly administrative, and that's what, when Vincent was saying it limits what you can do. It does not. It codifies what you can do. Initiative and referendum are really settled areas of law. It is very clear under the state of New Mexico and in laws across this country what it is you can do and you can't do with an initiative and referendum. And what this change in the charter does is it spells those out. So that is not a taking away of the rights from the people. It's codifying what's already the law. The substantive part really is changing the number of signatures you need to put a petition on the ballot. So we are going from, if this passed, from 10% to 15%. So in general, I think initiative and referendum are an incredibly important tool in our toolkit. We need to have that in a democracy to say, you know, in representative government to say, you know what, this county council has gone off track. We need to reel them in. Or there's a really important topic they're not talking about. We're going to put that on the ballot. Well, that's really important. But the question is one of balance. Where is the balance? So right now, 80% of our registered voters vote for the county council. We have huge voter turnout, so 80%. So 80% have already picked the people, whoever they are, that they think would best represent them on council. The question is, how many registered voters do you need to put what the 80% have said to a stop? Because practically speaking, once one person, as this was pointed out, once one person puts in notice that they're going to try to do a petition, everything on that issue stops, and it stops for 6 months. So, one, I think it's a good thing to shorten that time frame. But two, Mark Clay mentioned what our local communities do. In Santa Fe, you need 33 1/3%, and you need them from every district. In Albuquerque, you need 25%. We're just going from 10 to 15. We're not even going close to what they have. So we're just moving that a little bit more. But when I thought about it, I think it's helpful to look at what neighboring communities are doing, but I don't think it's definitive, and I think, well, how do we feel like we're doing about this? And the question I ask myself is, do we feel like we're a community where issues come up and they are resolved in a reasonable time frame? And most people don't feel that way in this town. And one of the reasons is how easy it is to do this. It is not the only reason. We certainly have the overpropensity to analyze, and there's any number of other reasons. But, for instance, but this is one. And so to me, ooching that over a little is actually more fair to the rest of us. It's still perfectly possible for a small group of people to go ahead and get those kind of signatures. But to me, the point of initiative and referendum is not to really cater to a very small group, but to allow a large group, when there truly is an issue that they are upset about with the county council, to do something about it. So this is a small change, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, we're ready for another question from the audience.
Okay.
Jerry.
Jerry Berry, I've been here since '59, back when we used to have many more elementary schools and 2 junior high schools and so forth. My question has to do with the schools. My projection is the lab funding will continue to go down. The percentage of retired people in Los Alamos will go up. And in 10 years, we'll probably have 10 to 12,000 retired people. And our school population will probably drop by 33 1/3%. I'd just like the potential candidates here, or the candidates, to give me a response to the statement that we are currently overbuilding our school system much more than we will need, and it's based on sort of current enrollment, which is totally unrealistic.
Okay, and we start with Steve this time.
Yeah. Well, we're considering the student population heavily in our projections. We're working on the high school first, middle school first. That's where all our kids converge. Aspen is one of our more centralized locations for where we can have the kids go to as far as an elementary school, and that the plan for that is a total rebuild. And I think it's like 300 or 300, I think, is the number. The other reason we've been keeping our numbers high is there's a waiting list of out of district to come into the Los Alamos schools. So we don't have any problem, or we don't foresee problems keeping our numbers level because there's so many that want to come in. Head count is how you get your state money. And so you have to, there's a balance, because you want to have the right amount of kids coming, because in that way you can, with the money you get from the state, how you can support the number of teachers you have. One of the things we are considering, and it's to look at in the next 3-year cycle, is should we do a consolidation in White Rock? But right now, there's a 10-year projection, we're looking at that population being pretty stable. And I'm not giving up on hiring a lot of new people into the laboratory, and I think that dam might break here in a few years too when we have a few more retire, and we can start the cycle over again.
Okay, give it to Mark, please. Mark, and then Michael.
Yeah, Jerry, so that's, in my involvement in the school system and what I've been looking at, that's the conclusions that I've heard as well. I do know that there is a lot of interest in coming up to Los Alamos to go to school, so we have to maintain that head count. I know the laboratory is strongly targeting its future. In fact, I believe the director, and Steve may be even in that meeting, I'm not sure, there's going to have a retreat here pretty soon talking from the director about succession planning at the laboratory. So they're really going to be focusing on how are we going to get from here to there, knowing that we have an aging population at the laboratory. I mean, I've been to the laboratory for almost 30 years myself. So you know, I'll be retiring in the next 10 years or so, and there's a lot of people in my boat, which is the point I think you're making. It's a good one. But there is a strong push to bring in new talent to the laboratory. Again, about not giving up. We have not given up about diversifying some of what we're doing in Los Alamos County to attract other businesses, which then in turn will bring folks to the community. So with all that projection and all that going on, it does look like those school numbers will stay about the same. And there's a lot of money going into the schools because the schools really do need it. I mean, there hasn't been any, you know, for example, the high school gym, Griffith Gym, was built when my mother-in-law graduated. Okay, it was commissioned in 1963, 64, I think is when it was commissioned. It needs a lot of work. You know, the middle school, the current one, when it was Cumbres, was really nice when it was built a long time ago, but it needs a lot of work, and that's where we're putting a lot of money into that right now. You know, Aspen School again. My father-in-law went to Aspen School and hasn't had a lot of work done. I think it's the same pools. They've just been painted, you know, the paint's like this thick on those poles, and underneath the paint is rust. So, you know, it needs to be updated. I know the county or the schools have put money into the schools in pockets, you know, a new gym for Mountain, those kind of things. But they do need a lot of work. So I do know that there's some overflow in some of the schools. Have you guys seen the seams at Mountain Elementary? There's a lot of kids at Mountain Elementary. So they're trying to even that load out, looking at the children coming from outside and youth. There is a plan for sustainable numbers for funding. I think we do need that investment. The laboratory's got a plan, succession planning. I hope Steve and the director are successful in figuring out what that's going to be, because it's a huge deal at Los Alamos. So, and then we as a county have to partner very closely on those to make sure that we're staying in touch. And all of our things we're doing are in lockstep with that.
Thank you, Mark. Michael.
So first off, I think it would be a shame to let our current students stay in crumbling buildings just because we think that 30 years from now there might be fewer students. That's a disservice to our current students. And my hope is that your prediction is wrong. I think if I'm elected to the council, one of the things I really want to work towards is making sure that your prediction is wrong. I think there are things we can do to help ensure that we make this town a more vital place. I think, as Mark was saying, the lab, if we can encourage the lab and our representatives in the Senate and the House to really push for diversification of the lab's mission and really bring in a younger pool of workers there, as well as diversify our economy in the town itself. There are a lot of avenues that I think we can bring in this younger generation and entice them to stay here so that we do maintain a higher population in our schools and make sure that it's worth putting the money into our schools. Thank you.
So, indeed, for retired people to stay here or even come here, because it's a good place for retired people, nothing wrong with that, but indeed it would result, if we don't as well attract young people and families, in lower numbers into schools. I think the schools have planned very well, step by step. Aspen definitely needs work, that's one, but to go through all the elementary schools, their plan is to keep the tax level flat and use that money as we go, rather than having a tax increase. So if 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now we don't need extra schools, at that point we may even be in a position to drop the taxes. So I respect, we just have to be on our toes. Now, fiscal policy of the county does tie into this. The county has in the past made efforts to take over certain functions, to pay for certain things of the schools. There are joint uses and ways that we can help the schools. But in passing any bond election, whether it's schools or for the county, if the voters feel that the county has not been responsible, they may take it out on the schools, even though the schools darn well need that money and have made a very good case for being responsible. So that's why I think we have to focus on priorities. If the county's budget is going to be restricted in the next few years, they may be lean years for the lab. That doesn't mean going to zero. That means tight budgets, and we have a little less money. We have to know and get community consensus what is most important and what is less important. Where are we doing things not so efficiently so we can save that money? Only if government in general is showing that kind of an attitude and the voters clearly see that, will they offer their own money to approve a school's bond. That's how it relates.
Kristen. And then Vincent.
So your question was, as I heard it, are we overbuilding the school system? And we're not building any new buildings. As Steve addressed, hopefully we're always going to need at least an a high school and a middle school. So those are being redone. And we currently have 5 elementary schools. Right now, Mountain School is the most packed, and it's growing. And the main reason it's growing, and I know this as a real estate agent, is because Western area has almost completely turned over. So when I lived there 9 years ago, there were maybe 3 families with little kids. Now it's almost all families with elementary school age children. That's why Mountain is so darn packed. Barranca Mesa is just in the process of that, right? We have a lot of folks out on Barranca Mesa that are empty nesters. And one of the issues that we have in our town, which again I know as a real estate agent, is we have very little what I would call downsized housing, where you could still live here, but you don't have to have your 3,500 square foot house and your huge yard. And we don't really have a lot of those places for people to go. And historically speaking, when people retire here, we stay, right? Everybody stays. Very few people leave. So right now, Barranca Mesa is still in the process. So there's just a lot of empty nesters there, but over time, when I sell houses out there, every time it's to families. So, and they always say to me, well, we don't want to be the only kids out here. And I say, you're not, because everybody else moving out here has a bunch of kids. So Barranca Mesa, that school, is still, it's got kind of steady population, but it's growing a little bit. And it's going to be the next one to burgeon the way Mountain did with Western area. And that's the reason why Aspen was redistricted to get more kids over there, because Ponderosa now is an area that doesn't have a ton of kids, but they could be, the ones that were over there are put over at Aspen. And I think in regard to the 2 White Rock schools, I don't know as much about the exact demographics in there. I know to me, White Rock, and I know a lot about White Rock, I can't say it because I do work down there a lot, but to me it's much more mixed. It's not as consistent just demographically in terms of it's already turned over more. Over time it has had more contractors, so they tend to come and go more. But there are still, to me it's still possible that we might end up needing both of those schools, and that would just be something we'd have to monitor in terms of who's moving in down there. Is it families? And usually in general when I sell houses down there it is again to families, but you know, we would just have to see. I don't think we're overbuilding, and like Michael says, I don't think it's right to continue to let kids, when we want to have an excellent school system, and having an excellent school system is important to the future of the lab. When I talk to people, and even our own friends, the main reason we initially moved here is the school system, especially compared to putting them in public school in other parts of the state when we have such an excellent school system. But we need to have at least reasonable facilities for those kids, and when they're so old and they're so falling down, really, it's right to be adjusting them. So I don't think we're overbuilding. Thank you.
Okay, Vincent gets the last word here.
Our public schools are the jewel of our community. And this community values education. And that's why for many years it's been supportive of school initiatives to improve the capital infrastructure of the public schools. The situation now, and it was worse a few years ago, is such that many students have to take courses in portable units. And I think given that kind of situation, the community understands that there's a need to upgrade the basic capital infrastructure of the schools. And this is for both the school board and the community to decide the best path forward. Where the county can help our public schools is in the area of operational expenses. The schools get most of its budget for operational expenses from the state of New Mexico. And frankly, they're not getting enough money. They have barely enough to provide the basic education. And for communities such as Los Alamos, the basic education is simply not good enough. We need electives. We need to have advanced courses. We need to have varsity programs, activities after school. And more than anything else, our teachers should not have to use their own money to pay for supplies. So there are needs. And the way that the county can help is by initiatives through the county's budget to help cover the costs for operating things like the Dwayne Smith Auditorium, to help have the county pay for having police officers in our public schools, to provide educational services to the students. And that's why, as county councilor, each time these kinds of budget initiatives have come before me, I voted in favor of them, because education should be our top priority. Looking towards the future, the council has hired, and the county has hired, an economic vitality manager. And our goal is to try to grow the economy. I would like to see us add between 100 and 200 new families to our community. And many of these folks can come from the population that's currently commuting each day to work in our economy. People want to work here in Los Alamos, but they're not living here. I think we've got to entice them to live here. And that's why developing new lands that the county owns, such as the A19 60-acre parcel in White Rock, helping to develop it with affordable housing and new retail options, can help bring those folks here. And if they come, we have to have school facilities and school programs that can meet the need. Thank you.
Thank you all. Do we have other questions? I don't know exactly how long we were supposed to go, but
It was open-ended.
I'm chilly, but not
Don't.
Carl.
I don't know what the council has to do with the free bus service that we have, the Atomic City Transit, but as somebody who is single so he can't carpool from Paupari to Acres, it's great. It's a real quality thing to be able to hop on a bus and get uptown. And I don't want a long answer. I just want to know if the council has something to do with it. Are you in favor of it?
Thank you. We start with Mark.
Yes. I'll expand on yes.
Okay.
So I'm very much in favor of continuing that program. It's great. Boy, when you see the number of people get off the bus when they're going to Atlanta, for example, it's a lot of people use the system. A lot of kids use the system. Especially since, again, with my coaching experience, I know that we don't run activity buses anymore because we can't afford them. So we use the LA bus system to get kids to and from home, example at the middle school after football practice. So the bus system is vital. We need to keep it going, and I'm in favor of it, especially as the dollar, I think the cents of gas keeps going up, 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 up. So I'm very much in favor of that.
Michael?
I'm also in favor of the bus system. When I was getting my master's degree at UNM, I didn't own a car, and I actually would travel from Albuquerque to visit my parents here in town using public transportation. And the local public transportation was part of that, the Atomic City bus. And so I understand the value of our public transportation, and I'm strongly in favor of it.
I agree with most people that the bus system here is something we're doing right. Yes, the county council does help pay for it. It is heavily subsidized by federal money. As long as that continues, we should take advantage of it. If federal budgets get tighter and tighter, we're going to be asked to pay more and more. It's a big benefit to the community, but we'll get this out on the table. I would, in fact, I hope the present council will agree to take the buses that have been running to Bandelier and in the winter send them up to the ski hill. I think that's a win-win situation. That also at the beginning of weekend service between White Rock, Los Alamos, the skating rink, and the ski hill. Cost is very low to do that, because if you have 9-month-a-year bus drivers going to Bandelier and you lay them off for 3 months, you're going to lose some of them. You're going to have to, it takes 2 or 3 months to get somebody else trained. So we can keep those bus drivers on doing a service for us all. I would also like to see limited bus service until 10 p.m. so that people who have one too many beers at the new brew pub can get home without drunk driving. So yes, it's a good thing. Like anything else, we have to balance the cost versus the benefit. Right now, we're getting a lot of bang for the buck.
Kristen? And then Steve.
Yes, I'm very much in favor of the bus system. I think mass transit is very important, and I think we have a great system right now, and I think it's terrific. And I also agree that it would be good to extend it to the ski hill in the winters. You know, one, it's nice in general to have it for everybody. It's especially nice for people who either can't or aren't, don't have a car anymore, who aren't driving anymore. But we also have a lot of families in town who either have no car or only have one car. There's a ton of those families, almost all of our postdoc families, especially our foreign national families. So, and that way they can get around, they can get their shopping done, they can get their kids to the pool, they can do a whole lot of stuff. So I think it's good for all of us, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
Mass transit affinities are always subsidized heavily somehow from the government, the local government. It's it's a quality of life thing. So yes, we're being spoiled on it a little bit because of or maybe a lot of it because of the subsidy. But if that would dry up, we might have to look at how to replace that by giving up something else. And because it's just so valuable to us. It's extremely valuable for parents. It is almost like helping our schools because it helps take pressure off some of the sports buses, the special activities. And then the bandolier thing we've been doing is a great way to capture those people and have them go to our visitor center and maybe buy something in White Rock before they get hauled down the bandolier.
Give it to Vincent. He should have been next, but we probably could have looked at it.
I voted for Atomic City Transit to keep it free, and I support it continuing as a free service. The dial-a-ride service, I think, is essential and a great help for people that have mobility issues, and I'd like to see that continue. And also there are potential for expanding the number of routes and expanding the services. But this is important for our community to help people move around. I think teenagers benefited from it, going to activities at the school after hours, and also our seniors benefit from it, and all of our citizens. And so I think we have to keep it free.
Okay, who's missed? Got it more?
So I think we got everybody. Got one more question? Okay, let's have this be the last question then.
I hope this would be the most important question. The reservoir. I think they should have been planting trees up there, and it's not going to cost the county nothing because you got that money from the fire. They allocated that money to build that reservoir, and I can't understand why it's taken so long. And you're going to say, well, the fire came through there and it eroded all that. Why couldn't you stop all that? Why couldn't they have been a block to stop all that?
Keep it away from there.
Santa Clara, look what they did. The block helped their little stream going down through Santa Clara, Pueblo. So I don't understand why it's taken so long.
You're standing right below the speaker.
So
You want to start over here?
One other thing I wanted to say, you're three of you guys, I know you guys went to that reservoir to fish, because it was really a nice place to go fishing.
It's not just county.
I would like to see that go again. Because when we were kids, I graduated from up here too, and we used to go on our bikes and go fishing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have very fond memories of the reservoir. I think it was a wonderful recreational resource for us, and I would love to see it return to the way it was. I'm not, I think we have to look at what are the costs and what is it going to take to do that. I have experience. I worked as a firefighter for the Forest Service. I have done, after the Cerro Grande fire, I was part of a tree planting team. So I know what kind of work really goes into making that sort of thing happen. After Los Conchas fire, there wasn't the same kind of outpouring of volunteer effort that there was after the Cerro Grande. And so we didn't have the kind of free labor of volunteers to really get in there and do that. And the other issue that they had was safety, that when you burn out something like that on a steep canyon face, a lot of boulders are perched such that they can roll down and get you. So I understand the the reasoning for it being slower than it probably could have been. It's something I would love to see return to its former glory. But I think we have to be not only patient, but also aware that maybe it's not going to be quite the same as it was. I think it might be cheaper and faster if we're willing to let it not be quite as big as it used to be more of a wetland, a marshy wetland with a pool that you could still potentially fish in. So those are some of the options. I haven't personally looked at what the costs are of getting it back there and what it would take to get it back there, but I think it's something that would take some close looking at.
The reservoir is an example of some of the problems we have in this community. There is state money, state water money to help repair that. Of course, it's a recreational asset. It's not just a recreational asset. A functional reservoir would be useful for firefighting and even potentially useful for the ski hill if there was a means to pump that water up to make snow. One of the big delays, along with weather, and we can't control the monsoons, and we can't ask people to go down there and work when it is unsafe. And as the Bandelier people will tell you, in the first summer after that fire, there were some floods come down through canyons like that. So we do have to do it safely. One of the additional delays, however, is bureaucratic. DOE owns some of that land. It wants to turn it over to the county. The county doesn't want to take it over until certainly we've got as much help from DOE on fixing that as possible, but we have to cooperate, and the county council has to push back sometimes. DOE, there are some people who are very cooperative. Kevin Smith, who's been their man for the land transfer to the county, has worked very hard to get us land that we can use, and this is important for leveraging for economic development. He's working very well to get that land cleaned up and to us, but that's the federal government. They're the 800-pound economic gorilla in this town. We have to push back. I'm not saying lay down, but we have to negotiate. They can be slow. And when you add to that weather problems and other problems, and this is, so that makes this a federal, state, county issue. We can make it work, but you better be ready to negotiate, and you better be persistent, because yeah, it's something we need. It's beautiful. We of course want the skating rink down there to be safe and usable as well, but we got to do it right, and we got to push our state and federal governments to cooperate and give us what we need.
Thank you, B. Give it to Kristen, please.
I think that where we're located, all of the beautiful areas around our town are one of the things that make it so great, and I think we do need to be responsible about them, and when it's something like this that's going to take a joint governmental effort, it's incumbent on the local county council to try to push that and get that done from our other partners. So I would be, in favor and looking into that and trying to get that done. I think all of those kinds of areas are important to our town. Thanks.
Thank you. And Vincent.
I've supported rebuilding and restoring our reservoir since before I ran for the council 4 years ago. And as a county councilor, I voted for a multi-million-dollar project to rebuild the dam at the reservoir, which is the heart of that area. And building a dam is a rather complicated affair. There are a number of state requirements that have to be met in the construction of the dam. And I think this, that more than any other factor, making sure we do our due diligence and take the time to meet those requirements is something that has made the project longer than we anticipated. But my commitment has not wavered, and I strongly support making this investment, not only in this recreational area, but in all of our recreational areas, our parks and our trails. I think Los Alamos should be a gateway to nature, not only for our own citizens to enjoy the natural wonders that we have around us, but also to serve as a beacon for tourists, so they can come here and visit Los Alamos and think of our community as a place that is welcoming and celebrates nature. And I think that would be good for us. And this project is one that I have supported and I continue to support. And I feel we're doing all that we can, working with our partners in the state government to try to bring about the construction of this project. And I have voted to go forward with it and restore the dam, and that's the first piece of it, to get the dam built.
Steve.
Vincent was right. It's an issue about, we were working on putting the dam in before this last fire, and I think the fire, we had to stop that effort, and I'm not even sure if they even had to damage it or to open it up, because they were afraid of what it might hold back, and then how that might let more debris come down if something did break. I thought they even had to do something to open it. So to tell you the truth, I don't know exactly where it is right now and the timing. But when projects like that get started and then something happens to stop them, then it seems like sometimes they're harder to get started again. So we'll just have to look into see what it is that we've committed to and how this is making progress. And it's only one of the land issues that we're working with the DOE. So I'm not even sure how much this one is associated with maybe some of the other activities that are going on. So looking into it is all we can promise, I think.
And Mark gets the final word before I freeze it.
It's cold in here.
I want the reservoir to be a viable area again as well. It was great when we took our kids and we went fishing and we did picnics, and I really miss that. Along with what others have said, there's a phenomena with the reservoir that's kind of got us in gridlock. If you, for example, if you built your home in 1940 to whatever that code was, you know, and it's just fine, and then something really bad happens to your home and you got to rebuild, you're going to find a nightmare of new regulations about how to try to redo that now. That's a lot what's going on. Environmental impact statements, quality of the dam. There's an enormous pile of I don't want to say bureaucratic or red tape, because some of these requirements are needed, but that's kind of it's hung up largely there, and it costs a lot of money to get those things through. So as a county councilor, I'll be committing to you to see if I can help lobby to get those things moving. We're not going to ever bypass those requirements. We can't just say, no, we're not going to do an environmental impact statement. No, we're not going to use that kind of concrete, or whatever the case might be. But that's something that I'll be committed to, because I feel strongly I'd like to have that back. From our position on county council, working with the state and the Fed, we'll do what we can. I have a feeling there's other things going to be coming down the road as far as the department and the Laos relationship from a security posture that's going to also get in the way. With things that have happened back east with security, I don't know what the final posture of Los Alamos will be as far as a bypass road. You might hear that again. Remember, that was something we dealt with before. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear language like that again. So, and that's going right over where that is, right? So, some of those things will be talked about. I'm in favor of the reservoir. I'd like to see if we can find a way to clear that logjam.
So folks, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I think these, I really feel very good about these 6 folks. I think we got 6 winners here, and I really feel good about the future here. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you so much for putting up with my